Ah, perfect. I think? Yeah, yeah. Okay. And let me just tweet out that I'm live. Okay. I think I got it all going. Alright. Hi everybody, I am Volcantis, and this is my special guest.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Is I me?
Yes. I brought you on because you kind of have a better idea of 14, and I would have a better idea of WoW, so this might be going a little bit smoother, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about the new WoW expansion, because I've been a WoW player on and off for a long time, and I've always tried to really like WoW, but in the past couple of years, it's been really hard to. So getting into this expansion has been not like getting into it, but like kind of finding interest in it.
The Shadowlands? You mean
Yeah,
again?
yeah. Shadowlands specifically has been kind of difficult.
Okay.
So,
Why in particular though? Like, what
um,
about the expansion makes it difficult?
it just it's hard for me to explain exactly, but it's kind of like you've been apathetic for years on a game you kind of hope is good, but it kind of never reaches that. Also, I've never really had friends to experience the game, so
That's fair.
you know. Hold on, I'm looking for a character to delete or play as. One or the other.
Okay.
Mm, delete that one. Oh wait, yeah, we'll make. Well, I'm just gonna make a character and level it as we kind of talk to have something in the
Okay.
background. So we'll just be doing that because I feel like that would be fun. Let's see. What character do you think I should just roll right now? What are you feeling?
Um, I don't know. Because you've been playing Rogue, right?
Yeah, that's what a cap does.
Okay. Hmm. Well, what character haven't you played yet? Like, what class? Have you
Uh,
played any healers yet?
I haven't played Paladin.
Oh, that might be a choice.
Okay, Paladin it is. We'll make a. I'll make a human paladin. That's fine. Okay, so first thing off, making a character. Shadowlands has vastly improved their character creator from what it used to be. Into something that's a little bit more modern. So you can choose like different skin colors. Like there wasn't really an option to have anybody with a darker skin tone. Which is honestly, it's nice that it's there now. It's really nice that it's there.
I mean, the character creator seemed improved from when I had seen gameplay of WoW, so I can't really.
Yeah.
And as far as FF goes, it's pretty decent with its character creator overall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 14 has a really good character creator for sure. So this is kind of something that they wanted to bring into, kind of bring into line, because WoW is always, it's been all right with the character creator, but it's not like amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good that they're bringing this. So by the way, this is a lot of options because apparently they did the most work on humans, and everything else kind of got like options. So there's a lot of options on this one, which isn't quite comparable to any other race.
So like FF, they show favoritism.
Yes, exactly. So that's fine. I like this one.
Winnie, I'm here, baby.
Oh, that's his dog.
Yeah.
It's like you can make your character blind in one eye, which is actually really interesting. Although they don't really give you an option to choose like one eye color and then another. So it's kind of like all or nothing. Which isn't great, but hey, it's fine. Oh, I can't even see my earrings. Okay. Oh. Okay, that works. What's fast? I think it's gonna be faster to do Exile's Reach, so we'll do that. Okay, so starting a new character, there's Exile's Reach, which is a new zone that's been created for new characters. And honestly, this is a good idea. This has been an idea that they should have done a long time ago. Because back in the day, if you wanted to make a character with any other person, you had to be the same race. No questions. So I'm glad that it's not that anymore.
Well, I mean, like that's one thing that it's weird to compare that to FF because just the just on top of like I'm trying to find words to actually put that in emotion. Give me a moment.
Yeah.
I need more coffee apparently.
That's all right.
It's
all right.
But like to me, that's one thing that I will say is off-putting about WoW. Specifically, just not just the faction thing, but like certain races in general just being locked out in classes. So like
yeah, they really don't like you.
That's again that's because FF just spoils. They had Final Fantasy had previous RPG like that did the job system, and the job system itself is really nice.
Yeah, the job system is a signature thing of Final Fantasy 14, and it really just thinks well.
It's just a signature thing from the concept of just Final Fantasy, right? Because like that's just something that's been around forever.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's so in 14 where you kind of have to roll a new character to get a new class, and you're kind of stuck with that class, and also nothing really transfers over between characters for the most part. It's kind of frustrating, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah, like because well, and that's partially because due to the fact that you can do everything on one character, they just assume that like you're only gonna make really like one character.
Yeah, which has its own problems. But I mean, for the most part, they make it so you don't really have a reason to make another character unless you're trying to go for like
An
all
alter.
crafters specializations or making it on a different data center.
Yeah.
You know. So in 14, things are kind of split up into data centers. So there's for North America, there's 3 different ones, and they can't really cross interact anyway. In WoW, you can kind of interact with anybody on the same server or a different server, as long as they're on the same faction. So if they're Alliance, you can go ahead and join their party and do whatever you want with them. But if they're Horde, you can't really play with them at all. And if they're on, yeah, they have to be on NA server. So if you're on NA, they have to be on NA. If they're on EU, you have to be on EU. And not only do those characters not overlap at all, you cannot transfer your NA character to EU, so they are stuck. Right? If you want to make anything on an EU server, you have to make an EU character. So it's if you have to make like you have to start from scratch. Like, you know, these healings and things are like account bound, and you can make those via your account. But for switching over to like different regions, you can't do that. So you'd have to make a new character, which is honestly very bad. It's very limiting.
It's funny that FF has such an amount of freedom, but it is also very limited in certain things like that.
Yeah, it is very limited in some regions, but it's still very limitless on other things.
Yeah, but like I said, like for example, and I was talking about this previously with you, is that just in general, like WoW has a lot of things that are like a blast from the past almost. Because again, like when we were doing it, when I was leveling up in that free trial, uh, banks, like I haven't thought about an MMO bank in years.
Well, I mean, the 14 has a bank. It's just called a retainer.
Yeah, but the retainer just functions to do other things, and mostly like crafting and other like other heavy very other various heavy things. It's not just go here to store items. A, because you have a huge inventory space. Just
Yeah, see, like this,
raw.
you get 16, you get 20 for more for having the authenticator, and then you have to add bags with the empty containers and do it that way. So it's kind of like so your inventory is not only limited by how big the bags are at the time, but how much you can either afford to pay for bags in the marketplace or just get bags from different people. So you're kind of really limited that way. Instead of just having a base, like, oh, you have 140 items you can carry on you, period. And you're stuck with that.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's one of those things like it's interesting to see that, and I'm not a big fan of that type of inventory system, but again, that just boils down to I'm just straight spoiled. Like
Yeah,
I've not had to deal with it for so long. That
absolutely.
you know, it just seeing it's like it's not a bad thing, right? And it allows transferring for items to different characters, which is kind of convenient, especially with how, like, in my personal opinion, the item system is just better. In WoW,
Mm-hmm.
itemization is just better.
Oh yeah. You got like a lot more options, I'd say, in WoW than in 14. I'll show you once I get to level 15, but there's like a lot of different things you can do. Right?
Yeah,
You can have a like a kit for AoE, kit for single target damage. You can have, you know, build yourself for self sustain in some areas. It depends on what class you are, of course.
yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like,
I really like this island, honestly. Oh, I gotta fucking use Shield of the Righteousness. God damn it. Hold on.
Fine work. A skilled paladin builds up holy power quickly, and then uses it to damage. Keep using Crusader Strike to build up your holy power.
I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to use a shield. I'm glad you can at least switch weapons in combat.
You have enough holy power to use Shield of the Righteous. You're out of holy power, so use Crusader Strike to generate more. You're getting the hang of it. Keep using Crusader Strike.
Yeah, can you see what I'm streaming right now?
No, I don't have the stream itself open.
Okay.
You have enough holy power. Good. You're ready to face the Quillboar. Let's get our people back.
But is it the same tutorial island that you went through with me?
Yeah. The exact same one. Except I'll show you how to speedrun it.
We'll find that missing expedition. It is good to see you. We'll head north and rendezvous with the others.
Not really, but yeah. This island is honestly really great for new players because it kind of teaches you almost everything you need to know. You know, it has bags, selling items, using your abilities, using your combo points, making sure you know what you're doing. The only thing is it doesn't teach you about at all is professions, which I would say would be really, really needed. So much so that I was surprised that they never even brought it up at all in this tutorial island. I feel like they should have.
Let's go. Those monsters have my son. I know.
Well, like I said, the tutorial islands too are like, I mean, I get big RuneScape vibes from those.
Yeah. As you should, because they also had a tutorial island. Not that I really remember, but that's fine.
Tutorial island was a time, and you could go back there to later quests, and it was really fun, but they got rid of it. It's just nostalgia.
Is it in like RuneScape Classic or whatever?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not entirely sure. Here.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, but...
Well, no, I was...
Oh, okay. This person just invited me to a group. I think they're also trying to just get through this island as quickly as possible. Which is fine.
Did Twitch affect me somehow?
Did Twitch affect you? What do you mean?
Here.
Am I not streaming? Is...
No. My Twitch app is bugging out.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Because it's like, it's saying that I don't exist.
Oh, well, I mean, that's fine.
I mean, you're right, it's okay if I don't exist. I'm kidding.
Fine.
Well, he was right. Now, where's the rest of the expedition?
There's always the, Hold on, I need to...
Let's just unshrink it. Whoops, too big. A slight adjustment, and
I have to use a shield for a while.
there. Just right. Give it a try. Come in. It seems the Scout-O-Matic 5000's camera is working as expected.
It has a camera? Then why does anyone need to be up there?
As a backup, of course. What if the machine were to break? We'd be
Okay.
able to see.
So yeah, the tutorial island was a really good addition. Because not only can you play kind of whatever race you want on whatever faction, but you're allowed to play with your friends, so it makes it a lot easier to play with friends, which is very nice. Because, like, in the past, that was really a big problem. Because you either had to get to level 10, figure out a way to get to their place and level there, or you kind of had to, like, separate for a little bit and figure things out separately before you got together at, like, level 10 or 15. So it was kind of, unless you were the same race, but sometimes you don't really want to be, or you can't. Because say you want to play as, like, an undead, but your friend wants to play as, like, a paladin. Like, you can't, because undead can't be paladins. So they have to roll something else.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, friends weren't really limited. Were really limited, I guess.
Which reminds me of the fact that, like, FF does its best to prevent people from power leveling their friends.
Yeah.
And I get why. There's kind of a different experience. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it.
I do. There's a reason. You kind of don't want to... Because you're kind of screwing over that player if your friend just happens to leave. Right? So they kind of want to make sure that the person themselves can do it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, better overall. It's better that that happens like that.
Stay focused and we'll deal with the army. The rest of you, push forward and set up camp once we've cleared a path. Order the board to trample. It's the only way to take down the larger ones.
I remember doing that quest, the giant boar.
Yeah. Hold on. I gotta kill this thing.
We've dealt with the undead. Now let's
Hit.
finish off that necromancer and save my
Hammer throw. Consecration.
Mother, I'm sorry. I tried to fight the ogres.
I will say that, like, the one thing that I appreciate, like, I don't mind tutorial islands. In fact, I think they're a cool experience, but
Private Garrick. I want a
um,
full situation report.
I will say that FF's benefit that it has is the fact that when you're doing, like, the tutorial area, like the start area, A, you'll be going back there a lot, but B, like, you have your class quests, which are more personal to your character's class or your current class.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, this, I mean, you will always go through the same quest, right? And part of that's just the different types of narratives here, but for the most part, that FF's class quest when you're leveling is specifically, like, the early, like, 1 to 15 levels. It helps break up kind of the monotony of doing the MSQ.
Yeah. You know, you get your little side quest that you got to do to get your next ability, and it helps bring things down. And it does it for this, but only for this. Only this island is gonna give you this kind of quest to go to a different area off from the main quest.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be much. Now, the class quests in FF are really well written for the most part. But at the same time, it still just doesn't have to be that much. It just, something to break up the monotony. And FF isn't the only thing that does that. Like, for example, Ion does that. Maiden's Soul does that to some degree, where you have trainers for your particular class, and you have to go back to them on a regular basis as you level to get your abilities. So, like, it's just one of those things that newer MMOs started doing. And I see why, because to some degree you're just breaking up kind of the monotony of doing the quests. Whether the story is good or not, like, sometimes you just need, like, a break real fast.
Yeah.
Just something to kind of, in between, that's not just a random side quest.
Yeah,
and that's not.
It still helps you, not just from, like, getting, like, experience and all that, but it progresses your character in a way that's not through the main story, which is always very nice.
Yeah. It's just interesting that WoW hasn't done that yet, but I guess that would take a long time given the amount of specializations and whatnot.
Kind of in a way. Like you could get things that are just like class specific items and things, class specific things, which is kind of alright, but still, it's not really the same.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Leveling is honestly kind of a mess still. They did a lot of improvements, but even from the end of Legion to here to now, because
I mean, like leveling when I was doing it didn't seem to take that long. So like that's a plus.
oh yeah, it wasn't
But
that bad. It was a lot worse before.
I was like, given the fact that this game has been around for a while and has that many expansions, it's nice that the leveling doesn't take that long. I can't say the same for FF, but that's mostly because FF's main story locks you behind content.
They got a story to do.
Yeah, well, not just that. Like a lot of the quests are, and they're attempting to clean them up, but they're not as streamlined. So like, and leveling doesn't progress you. So like, you could spend time in roulettes and dungeons to the point where you're near max level, but you're still on a level 60 quest. Like
Yeah, and 80 just kind of for like comparison. 80 is the cap right now, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of could be like 20 levels below by just doing your roulettes and your daily quests, your daily roulettes, and kind of writing that out, doing things very casually. But you'd still be behind on the main story, which is actually a problem here on Shadowlands. Believe it or not.
Does it have a similar problem?
It does here in the end. So technically, if you were to follow the story completely, in Shadowlands without doing any of the side quests, you will be roadblocked by level requirements. The first one is 53, then 55, then 58, then 60. So there is like roadblocks that will hinder you from going forward. For like if you don't level enough. So and then it also works the opposite way. So like you could be level 60, but you still can't do any of the endgame stuff until you complete the campaign, which a lot of people are kind of upset about. But it's something that 14 players have been having to deal with for years. And I'd rather be overleveled than underleveled. I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not so bad. But still, it is a problem. Okay. Also, this person kind of just invited me to a party, and I'm just kind of leveling while they follow me. So if they keep up with me, they keep up with me. If they don't, they don't. Which is fine.
Now, out of curiosity, does having a party in WoW like benefit you in any way outside of just having a party?
No. There isn't really any benefits except for the fact that you can do things a lot easier. Also, characters and things don't scale, so you can kill things a lot quicker. So
I don't know if you read that, because I know that you've played a little bit of Destiny because you played with me on occasion.
Yeah.
But Destiny implemented a new system where the bounties that you get, basically what you're getting for XP for the season, you get more XP when you turn them in if you're on a fire team or in a party.
Okay.
So like, and then towards those bounties, if you're in a fire team when you're completing them, that'll give you extra points towards completing them. They introduced that with the new DLC, and now I'm thinking about it, like, why doesn't like if you're doing just like side quests and stuff, if you're in a party, it'd be really neat if MMOs just started to do that. I was wondering if maybe WoW had already started that, because typically games will follow WoW.
Yeah,
in some fashion.
They do. But honestly, it's always a good idea to have like experience boosts or things like that.
Yeah, I just like it'd be neat if they would, because MMOs, at least in my opinion, typically are social games. So like, you want to encourage the sociability of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So-
And it is helpful and it's very nice, and you'll need people at endgame anyway, so it's not like you shouldn't be in a party.
Yeah,
It's just
like
it's
giving the players like an XP bonus, right?
uh-huh.
'Cause I just think it would be nice.
There is something similar you can do with recruiter friend. So if somebody gives you a recruiter friend, you can kind of insanely power level, because they like boost. If you two are both together in a party, you can boost your needed experience gains by like 200 to 1,000%, something crazy like that. Or just kind of, if you gain a level with you two together, the other person can just give you levels and grant them to you. So you can absolutely just power level. Oh, this person's telling me about the chest right here. Okay. But yeah, leveling I feel like is still kind of not really where it needs to be right now. It's come a long way, but it still needs some improvements. Like, say the fact that you're kind of stuck in the Battle for Azeroth area until you at least complete like the intro quest to that place. Right? So until you unlock the portals to leave Borealis, you are stuck into BFA and you cannot switch. And you're also not allowed to do any non-BFA zones until you complete that. And they don't even tell you.
Something huge is headed this way.
Might as well just get this.
Fight together for the Alliance.
I don't understand this person.
To be fair, I don't understand people.
They're like, go turn in your quest. It's like, I'm gonna anyways. See? We gotta turn these in.
What's on your mind? Come.
Might as well do them all at once, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea.
It's okay. People... They clearly have some experience in the game, so it's fine. But it's always nice to level with somebody. But yeah, being stuck into BFA is kind of really bad. Because BFA, I feel like, is a weak leveling zone in general. Yeah, it has a lot of polish on it. It's kind of nice, but it's not very intuitive, if at all. It's very much God, how do I put it? God, is it kind of dull? Also, it's very messy. Because you can kind of... Because it's very unintuitive, because sometimes you don't know what you're doing. Right? You remember that little... there's a quest in like this little pirate city where you have to pull out line in order to get an item, but the line's all tangled. But it doesn't tell you that, so you kind of don't understand. So you have to keep pulling out line until you get the item you need, because all the lines are tangled and you're not sure which line it is. But they don't really tell you. It's kind of in the quest text, but not really. So you kind of just have to know that you're supposed to pull out lines until you get the item you need. And sometimes that RNG can take forever. It can be like 10 or 11 or 13 pulls of the line before you get the right one. You know, so it's kind of bad in that way. Also, they force you to be in stuck in the zone, in that specific zone area, which is awful. Tier's Guard Sound, which I believe is the leveling place where Borealis is not great. I would say it's a very weak leveling zone for the Alliance side. Just having to take selfies as like part of your quest, as kind of your introduction to WoW itself, I feel like is very weak. Like, yeah, it's kind of goofy and a little silly, but it's...
Well, I mean, but I think that I would argue that it's part of WoW's little its flavor, right? Because like,
yeah, I guess it's supposed to be a little goofy. Is that right?
yeah, like it's supposed to have that little bit of goofball to it, you know?
A little goof to it. I don't know what this monk's doing. I think I'm just gonna... I'm gonna keep going ahead. I guess I can wait for them for a minute. Well, I can go back. We'll do that quest. Because it looks like they're about to do it. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave their party. It's fine. I just want a power level. I'm sorry, friend. I appreciate your help. So, I think it's a weak leveling zone, but I don't necessarily think it's terrible. From a new player's perspective, it does definitely give you the highlights. I think the Horde might be a little bit stronger in that area, but it's different. It's got a lot of like hills and valleys and things like that you got to go through, so it's a little difficult to like traverse. But if you were to pick up things like Goblin Gliders, which allows you to glide in the air for a certain amount of time, it's actually really fun to level in that zone. Have you seen like Goblin Gliders at all or anything like that before?
No, I didn't. No, I have not.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like an engineering item you can make that allows you to glide in the air with pretty good speed. But the only thing is you can go downwards, but that's it. So it's pretty freaking cool because you can just kind of like go to the top of a mountain and glide your way all the way down to a different area, you know, so you can just travel fast that way. But yeah, so when I was leveling a character, so I made a Void Elf mage, and a Void Elf is an allied race, so they immediately start at level 10 and can pick an expansion to level in.
Okay.
Yeah. So they don't have to go through this whole intro quest, which takes about, I would say, an hour. If you're really booking it, 2 hours if you're not. Which isn't so bad. So it's a good pace. It's a good pace. It doesn't keep you here for like a whole session if you were to play like 4 hours a day, you know? But when so I got my Void Elf mage leveled to like 10 to 50, in about like a whole day. I did it within like 2 settings within the same day. I didn't do anything that day except for level. So, and I was able to get myself to level 50 within that day. So it's not bad at all. You can absolutely level yourself to the current expansion tier within the day if you have enough time, but I would say maybe around 12 hours if you're kind of on the slower side. Which isn't bad at all, of course. You know, catching up to catching up to the current expansion in a short amount of time is pretty good.
Yeah, well, you want to be catching up on expansion stuff.
Exactly, because doing anything that's not current, while nice, helps you does not help you at all. Right? It can kind of help you catch up, but you're still not going to get the whole you're not going to get the whole deal. Right? You're not going to get the whole story and I kind of understand it. Unless you were to go through every single expansion or kind of catch up with like lore books or YouTube videos, things like that.
I'll draw the ogre's attacks. The rest of you focus on taking them down.
The best way to go through the story is kind of experience it yourself, but and they don't really give you a major catch up. You kind of have to know what's going on or kind of have to figure it out, which is fine, but it's still like silly that it's that way.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that you either don't care about the story or do care about the story, that you've done research yourself. Because for Shadowlands, they do not catch you up at all. They're just like, hey, the Helm of Dominion was shattered. We got to go back. We got to go after Sylvanas because she decided to kidnap some of the main characters. So we got to go fix that. And they don't even tell you who. They're like, which characters? Like, who's Sylvanas? Why is it important? They kind of at least hope that you saw the Shadowlands cinematic. It's a great cinematic, by the way, but still, it shouldn't be the way you catch up with the story.
Yeah.
Is a single cinematic and kind of hoping that people understand what's going on. Shadowlands isn't really itself a self-contained story. It requires some knowledge of past expansions, especially when they have like big reveals. Like there's some, because Shadowlands is all about it's technically the afterlife of all the souls. And
Well, yeah, I was reading about that. It's considered like the like underworld effectively.
Yeah, so it's like split up into like 5 different zones. The Maw, Ardenweald, I couldn't name the other ones off the top of my head. But they're separated depending on what you've done in your life. Like there's the army, there's like dishonorable souls where they get a chance to redeem themselves. So it's one of those things. One where if you dedicated yourself to nature, it's where the natures come back to life and the cycle goes again. And one, if you are good in your life, you get to become an angel and kind of help future souls move on and help guide the way for them. But for doing that, you kind of have to give up your memories.
Okay.
Of your past self, yeah. So there's a trade-off for that, which is kind of interesting. But at the same time, it's not my thing. That's okay. It's not supposed to be. But yeah, their whole thing is like Diablo 3, kind of like what the angels are, I guess. But they're not perfect, but they are kind of benevolent in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah, but the main gist is that they have a lot of they have a lot of hits. that they do. A lot of like reveals that are supposed to be kind of a big deal. And if you don't know the story at all, it doesn't matter. Like they have like a big reveal for something. So like if you're in Ardenweald, the whole part of the story is that you're raising the seed to make sure that it grows. And that seed is a past character that died. And they hint at it pretty well. It's a little heavy-handed at the end, so you kind of know who it is if you have any idea. But it doesn't. If you didn't play Legion, it doesn't matter.
Well, and
you don't care about the reveal because the reveal doesn't matter to you. All you know is that thing happened, which is, I don't know. It's sad.
yeah, well, and I will, like I said.
By the way, anybody who's gonna level, they should play through Legion. I would say it's not the fastest leveling expansion by far, but it's a really good one. Because you get Legion artifacts, which is basically just a shiny weapon that you can glamour over, which is very good. I'm fucking out of here. I wonder if this gives me like 5,000. Oh. Okay, so they just round you up to almost level 10. So the leveling is actually much more enjoyable now, of course. So picking a class for me actually was really difficult.
I feel that I'm indecisive as fuck.
Yeah. It's very difficult because my friends were all going to be playing range characters. So I kind of had this expectation of being like, oh, you probably should play melee because we're going to be playing together, and playing all ranged might be a little weird. So I was like, okay, I'll pick a melee class. And I originally rolled as warrior because warrior fun. Fury warriors are able to dual wield two-handed weapons. So they have two-handed weapons as their weapons of choice, which is like, okay, that's awesome. So Fury is always a good time, and then Arms I always really like because it's methodical. It's a thinking warriors class. Because Arms, at least how it used to work back in the day, it was like you save your resources and you kind of build up, and then you do your Colossus Smash, which increases their damage taken by like 10-15%, and then you just blat all your abilities on there, and that's your burst window. So it's really fun. So I was liking Warrior, and then I wasn't liking Warrior. I was like, Warrior's fine, but I feel like I could pick something else that'd be better for me. But then I picked Mage for a little while, and I leveled it all the way to 50 without really thinking about it. I was like, okay, I guess I really like Mage. And Mage is fine. The problem is, for me, it was squishy. Like, some absolute squish. Right, nothing's worse than having I just think it's kind of so through Shadowlands actually is kind of a tough experience, personally. Because things hit hard, and I always felt like it was kind of difficult to go through the entire expansion because I was always sitting at like 20% health the entire run. I had to rely on like healing items and self heals and sitting down for food. It's like, this is current WoW. Why do I have to sit down for food? You know? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to heal. But it's actually very difficult, and I'd say that's good.
Difficulty is nice, yeah. As
Yeah.
long as it doesn't make it. You just have to draw a really fine line with difficulty.
Yeah. I feel like it was very good. It wasn't like bone crushingly difficult, but it wasn't easy. Which is, I think, is a good in between. Good in between. You know? For sure. I'm just sending some money over so I can get myself some bags if I can. I don't know if I can. So we'll see how that goes. So it was a time. It was definitely very difficult. Near the end of the Revendreth, which is the final zone, I had a really hell of a time killing a certain boss. So I was using all my abilities, I was hitting my cooldowns, you know, I was making sure I was being defensive, and I still was like still really below where I should have been. So it was kind of frustrating.
Oh, why is it not? I want the stream full screen, damn it. There we go. Damn it, if I'm going to be on TV, I want to see it on a full screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and it's funny, again, I was just looking at the inventory. I'm just like, man, like, look at all... like, because again, you just, sometimes, and I don't mind it, it's actually kind of a seg choice, but like, you just see some of the, its age a little bit.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with graphics normally, because most people would be like, well, yeah, it's graphics, honestly, good, bad, like, games can have either or. Yeah, you can want to play in, like, 20p, or 24K, whatever magic. My brain right now, but graphics don't make the game. The game makes the game.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. There we go. And now I have enough money to buy some bags. I should have enough. 2,200 gold. It's just kind of what I had on hand for the server. I want to get some containers. Yeah, on my mage and even on my rogue, leveling was it was still really difficult, I would say. Mind you, if you're kind of like one of those people who is like, oh, you know, level all day and things are kind of easy, I can't imagine it'd be difficult for you, of course, but
Yeah.
it's...
Well, it just depends on how hard you're willing to go, right? Like,
yeah. Let's see. Look at this one. Three, four. Is there any like paladin glyphs? Glyphs are like things where you can change the look of your
armor.
the look of some of your abilities.
Okay.
Okay. I don't need that one because of the Ancient Kings. Okay, so I got some glyphs because I'm like, I want something a little fancy. And I got more bags. Okay, and then we're gonna level through Legion. It's not as fast as Warlords of Draenor, which is the fastest leveling zone by far. Because they have like bonus objectives in there. Which is basically just like side objectives that aren't like tied to any specific quest. You can do to gain like experience and some gold, and it's pretty good. And then I'm going to we gotta make sure we have a good transmog. We gotta make sure.
Yeah, you gotta make sure that you look good.
Exactly. So this will take a minute. It's very important, very, very important. Okay, so we're gonna go Ashbringer, of course. That's fine. Yeah, this one has a lot because you can actually your belt matters. Look at all these nice belts here. So it's nice to have a belt that's not invisible. Let's. All right, this is a decent step. Yes. It looks very jank, but it'll do for now. I hope you didn't see that one overlay. Maybe I should turn off the Discord overlay.
Wait, just you just see my face over your face?
No, I thought you saw the message.
No. I just see my face over your face.
It's fine. I'm gonna move it anyways, because it's better to have it like centered near your character. So that's why you're gonna be paying attention most of the time. And looking directly to the top left and looking back is a little jarring. Okay, we're nearly there. Okay.
It's so nice to see you. Is this hello or goodbye? I keep losing track. If you find a powerful weapon, just make sure it isn't corrupted by the Burning Legion or old gods. Okay.
Chromie's great. I think we should play Heroes of the Storm sometime. It's a different MOBA. A different kind. But it's pretty good. But yeah, I was always saying, so there's a lot of things towards, so say you get your character all leveled. Oh, can't see that. Let me turn that off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
1 second. Overlay. Off. Okay. Sorry, those are, you shouldn't be able to see private messages, my bad. But say you say you level your character, you get everything you want, and you're gonna be doing hardcore raiding, right? You're gonna be day one raider, all that stuff. You're making sure you have your pots ready, your flasks ready, everything ready. But now it comes time to choose a covenant. Each covenant has a different ability, and they are not the same. So inherently, one's gonna be better than the others. But the problem is changing to a different covenant is not easy. So, say you start off with like the Venthyr, which is the vampire race, the vampire crew, I believe, because you like their ability and you want to be like a vampire. But fuck you, Night Fae is the best ability, and you need to be Night Fae. So you have to. So you can actually do this without any penalty. You can leave the current covenant you have and join a new one. The only thing is you have to build up the reputation again, which isn't that bad, but you still have to do that.
Okay, so I mean, it's kind of similar, different. I mean, like, because FF's beast tribes function differently. It's kind of like just separate quest lines, but similar. Like you have to reset the reputation and build it.
Yeah. Then, they just buffed Venthyr, so now it's the best one for raiding. So you leave Night Fae, but when you go to join Venthyr again, they say, no, you left us before. We don't trust you. Go do daily quests, and then we'll trust you again. So you have to do quests for a while for you to go back in and do that. So there's kind of this idea of like tying the different covenants to different powers is bad because you have to like there's no choice.
I mean,
like you either
you're at it. I mean, it adds kind of like an extra layer of stuff, but it's almost just busy work to get ready for a raid. Like,
yeah. So
and especially in like you would think that they do a little bit better when it comes to that kind of stuff, mostly due to the fact that like unlike Final Fantasy XIV, WoW has a competitive raid scene.
But
not to say that people aren't competitive in FF14 about it, but like Blizzard supports those types of stuff.
Yeah, there is a world first race, things like that. They put their stamp of approval on it, things like that.
Yeah.
So the problem is, what if you wanted to do anything else other than raiding? But the covenant you only have is good for raiding. They're kind of like, oh, well, I want to do some PvP, but to have the best PvP builds, I need to be Kyrian, which is like the angel people. And then you'd have to swap again and swap again and swap again, or you kind of just have to live with the fact that your ability is less than ideal.
Yeah, well, but and that just depends because it won't affect hyper-focused players because there are players that just avoid PvP and only do raiding. There's players that only do PvP, so those hyper-focused players aren't gonna care that much comparatively.
I mean, they'll care enough.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, so Mythic Plus. Do you know what Mythic Plus is?
I do not.
Okay, so Mythic Plus is essentially they're all the dungeons in the game and the current expansion scaled up to level the current cap, and you get a keystone. You get that keystone, you put it into the thing, and then at the beginning of a dungeon, and it has like different affixes. So in essence, you could have your keystone like level 4, and like mobs in that dungeon hit like 60% harder and they have 60% more health, but you get better gear at the end. You get gear that's nearly comparable to raid gear. Right, so it's,
I mean, and that's a nice thing because I mean, FF's dungeons are fun, they're well designed, but they're not difficult by any means, and they don't provide you with like outside of specific like ultimate best in slots, right? Like
So
They don't.
it kind of brings life into dungeons that would have been ignored otherwise. So it means
Yeah,
they have to put
you would,
attention into it.
yeah, you would just do the dungeons as you leveled up and then never touch them again.
It's kind of like evergreen content, if you know what that means. So
Not particularly.
content that'll always be good to do.
I mean, and well, I mean, an example of and how not to do it. So, going back to Destiny as well. I know this is from an FF player's perspective, but
Uh-huh.
there's not much you can do. I mean, there is expert roulette and stuff, but those aren't difficult. Those are just a way to get currency to get gear
Yeah.
effectively. But Destiny with this new thing, it like a lot of the planets out. And part of that was because like they had old content, specifically like old strikes, which are kind of similar to dungeons in a way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with old gear that like nobody cared about, and it was the point where people weren't doing them, despite them occasionally having those strikes on a list that make them more difficult with different like buffs and debuffs. And so it's good to have some way of making dungeons just relevant for people that are at the end of the other end of the level spectrum.
Yeah.
Keep those dungeons kind of fresh.
Yeah. It's always nice to have content that's kind of always relevant, no matter what you do it in. Even if it's not perfect, well, it gives you an avenue of way to do things.
Well, on top of that, right? Like, so it means that information that you learned prior about the dungeon, whether how mundane, will actually be useful later.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for example, learning FF dungeon mechanics, you might remember it once or twice just because it comes up on a roulette. But like right now, we finished the raid tier, right?
Uh-huh.
We're working on an ultimate fight. But outside of that, I don't get on to run dailies anymore because I don't need, I have best and select gear and stuff. So it's like, why do I need to remember as a, top end player? Why do I have to remember the dungeon mechanics? And yeah, if you wanted to go for like, I know that it's starting to pick up steam as some dungeon speed clear stuff, but it's not really like that.
It doesn't give you anything other than bragging rights, where Mythic Plus actually gives you really good gear to have.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then at the end of every week there's a chest that you get. So say you do everything, you do your raid and you do your Mythic Plus to a certain level, you get like a chest at reset that'll give you a really good piece of gear that's higher than anything you could have gotten during the week. And the more you do, the higher chance you're gonna get something that you actually need.
Well,
So it's always worth it to do it every week, because it's always going to be an improvement. For gear wise, it's always going to be an upgrade until you're like max eye level. So it's always worth it in that way.
yeah, and
But going back to the Covenant thing, it's honestly very frustrating because WoW, the World of Warcraft team has been kind of doing something to hinder people's enjoyment of the game every single expansion since like Legion. So this is kind of like an occurring problem. Like so Legion, you had your artifacts, but those artifacts were tied to a certain spec, right?
yeah,
So not a class, a specialization. So that means if you wanted to play any other specialization, you had to build up your other specs item, which required you to get like artifact power, which required you to do some grinding in either dungeons or doing quests, things like that, to kind of get enough artifact power to level up your weapon. Right? Because your main one should be the one that's leveled the most. and then you had your alt one, which you're on your different spec, which you kind of kept leveled, but it wasn't quite the same. So it was kind of a problem in the sense that like you better stick with your specialization no matter what, because if you want to switch to a different one, well, tough luck. You have to build that all up again. So it kind of sets you back. And if one spec happens to get nerfed, like the one that you're maining, and you want to switch to a different spec, it's really tough. It's really tough to build that back. So it was just a grind to kind of keep things within the same area. So you kind of had to main things. You kind of had to just like main a spec and live with it, do the ups and the downs, or you just picked up a different class.
And that's kind of like I mean, I talked to you about it previous, but like spec systems specifically, they're cool because they add like layers of customization to your character, and you feel like you're different from, if your base class is paladin and there's different, or the class I played, your base class is monk, but you're a brewmaster, you feel different, like specifically than for example a windmaster monk. Like it feels an extra level of different, and there's more customization in WoW in that sense. But the problem with it is like for the changing specs is kind of difficult, at least from what you just told me. And then on top of that, like that's where FF has the benefit of, if like for example looks at Bard, if you like playing just physical ranged, or basically a range class, you can just switch over to something like machinist or dancer, and it's on the same character. It takes like 2 seconds. Your gear might be melted slightly differently, but it's not too terrible, and like it doesn't make it difficult. It's all on the same character, which again is just part of being FF. But that aside, being able to switch what job you're doing at any given point just allows for, if there's a case where they do change it in any degree that you don't particularly like.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, specializations, sometimes they can all be DPS, but sometimes they're different roles as well, right? So if you say you don't like your Retribution Paladin anymore, people really would probably still stick with DPS, so they'd have to roll a different character, not just have the same one, right? Because the only other options is to tank or heal on a Paladin, which I guess is technically a different flavor, but it's something that's very different, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like you said, it's part of it also just like WoW in and of itself just being different, or rather the progenitor of different things. So
yeah, characters are so like disconnected from I mean, players are kind of disconnected from what character they play sometimes. I mean that in the sense of like, well, I'm not just anybody who plays like two different classes can't be on the same character, so it's they kind of have to, you're leveling an alt in like the most sense of the word, because you have to level that character separately, which is like still something you have to do in 14, but you can't really get gear the same way. You're not gonna be able to share gear drops. If you happen to get a piece of gear that doesn't work for the class you're playing as, it's soul bound, so that means you can't trade it.
I'll signal for our Hippogriff Riders to get our following to Lightsoap Chapel. You must forge ahead and find the High Lord.
So it's one of those things.
yeah, and that's like I said, FF just benefits from a previous game in Final Fantasy series being able to multi-class or do different things, and
Take the hammer.
we can bully you.
Okay. You bitch. So that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is that in Legion it was you have to stay as your spec. In BFA was you have to stay as your class, because they were able to widen it so that it was class specific instead of role spec specific, but you still had to stay as your class. For this one, you're kind of for this expansion, it's you have to stay as your covenant. Wait, oh okay, I have to go in here. Hold on. I got it. So it's just limiting for the sake of limiting, I feel. Right. I feel like either make the choice meaningful without having to tie it to like an ability for your class, or just have it separate. Just have it separate. Right? Say have the covenant choices separate from gaining an ability. Make it like a different, like you choose a different like reputation to grind, and you get stuff for getting that reputation, but you can't gain the other ones, you know? Okay.
Yeah.
Did I even get the Ashbringer? Oh, I have it equipped. Okay. Yeah. But it was, in the end, it's still kind of frustrating on how it's so limiting for the sake of it being limiting within itself. But WoW has these like fun moments. Like I was just going through it before streaming today. But the Night Fae, the way you join the Night Fae is you have to put on a play. And they kind of go through the recent expansions and putting on a play on that. And everybody's kind of like doing their best, like, oh, what's my line? And, you know, kind of goofy. And I think that's like great. It's amazing. I love that because it's so, it's not taking itself seriously. If you remember Avatar: The Last Airbender, have you ever seen that show?
I have, yeah.
Do you remember during season, I believe 3, the Tale of the Fire Nation plays?
Yeah, yes, I do.
The play that's during when they're in the Fire Nation. I think it was just based on that, and I just love that episode because it's it's so goofy and it's kind of wrong, but also it's really funny. The fact that the kind of like they're recounting the events, so it's kind of like a recap episode without like being a recap episode, where they put like a lot of heart into it and they kind of make fun of themselves at the same time. Like the fact where you don't know if Jed is dead or not, because you just don't know. So it's one of those things, and that's really good. That's like some really good content right there. Bye, fucker. It's okay. It's okay. He was an important lore character, but I killed him. Well, I didn't kill him, but
One might say you murdered him.
no, he was dead already. We just kind of were here. We witnessed the murder. We didn't make it happen. Not this time. Oh, God. I forgot to tweet out that I'm streaming. Idiot. Oh, I'm so bad. I forgot.
It's all good.
That's okay. It's fine. But I will say though, that Shadowlands has been a wonderful surprise.
I heard it's been a really decent expansion.
It's
but...
really good so far. I can see that there's going to be a lot of balance problems. And I mean a lot of balance problems.
Why is that? Like, what in particular makes it unbalanced?
So right now, before the expansion even launched, while they were doing balance tuning, things were already kind of out of whack. Like, say one spec was doing double the damage of another one, which, you know, isn't good. But the reason why it's going to be unbalanced later is because of, I believe, it's called the conduit system. So conduits is basically you get 3 followers, and each of those followers give you certain buffs as you rank them up every week. They'll give you like certain buffs or abilities or let you do certain things. And those conduits are covenant specific. So considering that it's covenant specific, that means that being a certain conduit in a certain covenant can be so much more powerful than any other thing. And these conduits have to account for every single class's healer, tank, DPS. So they're kind of balancing a lot. They're balancing a lot. Just on a single conduit. So they're doing a lot. It has to do a lot of heavy lifting in order to keep things balanced, but the inevitability is that it's not going to be. The reason why 14's balance is so well is because they kind of homogenize things a little too much. You know? So it's kind of it's much easier to balance. Right. It's not like black mages have access to this thing that will increase their cast times by 50%. It will decrease their cast times by 50% if they take a certain thing, you know? But you know, if it, like, say like a paladin were to take it, it wouldn't really be interesting because they already have instant cast time, so it wouldn't really matter. So you can kind of see how things get unbalanced really quickly.
Well, so the problem is that really where FF is the most varied, I think, is the fact that each individual DPS needs balancing, and you could tell that based on the fact that they have to go back and rework a lot of stuff a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that they have to keep touching Monk is indicative, kind of how that's just got to go.
Yeah.
And the healers, they basically just admitted that Scholar wasn't doing what they intended. So that the healers they've had a problem with it since, you know, Astro.
Yeah. It's a problem.
Lord Shadowbreaker, the High Lord would like to peruse the reconnaissance you've gathered on the Broken Isles. For the Alliance.
Okay, we're gonna go to let's go to Xena.
What can I do for you?
Okay.
At your service. My life for the Silver Hand.
Oh, I can just pick another one if I wanted to.
Azeroth will not fall while we stand.
Okay, this is all like the order things. I don't really need to do any of these, so I'm gonna go back to Dalaran. And just level. So, I guess I can kind of say that they've really improved the leveling. They've really improved the way how things are. The leveling squish was a really good step in the right direction because having to level to 130 is really off-putting for most people. But having to level to 60 isn't so bad. And squishing everything down isn't so bad. So, and also what I've heard is that if you want to do any legacy raids at all, you have to be at least level 50. Because there's like the Lich King raid and the Burning Crusade raid and all that. They still scale to your level until level 50. And then once you're level 50, you get like a massive buff to overworld. So now things don't really hit as hard anymore. So you can't really do any solo content until then. Where back in the day, if you were at like Legion or something like that, you could do solo content as long as you were just good enough. Like you could walk into a level 60 raid as like a level 110. You weren't capped, but you could do it, and it wouldn't be that bad. But now you have to be level 50 again, which is like, that sucks. Well, it's not so bad. Okay. I have to hide chat. So leveling is really good. Leveling the expansion was a little rougher than I expected, in all honesty. The environments are really nice, honestly. They're very well done. I think it's probably the strongest thing in World of Warcraft is its visual aesthetic. Like all the spells and the abilities and the light show. Paladin kind of accentuates that because they can kind of glow into a thing of light and look really impressive. Demon Hunters are kind of the same way, but with like fell magic.
Yeah. I will say that, like, again, WoW will always have like kind of a decent, cool aesthetic, mostly because they've been able to spend years like polishing it.
Also that, and also the artists are really good at what they do.
Yes, I agree.
They carried BFA. They really did. So that's it there. Leveling through Shadowlands, great. All the different factions appeal to different people, which is good. I would say there's a really big gap. Yeah, because all of them are like different. Like there's like 3 different covenants that are cool, and there's one that's cute.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a gap there. I forgot that Templars verdict. Oh, god damn it. But hey, that's how it is. I would say that the leveling through the zones was really nice. It was nice that it was railed again on rails. And it wasn't just, say... what's the word? For Legion and BFA, they were kind of like, pick whatever zone you want, and then we'll just scale with you. Which is kind of nice, but it doesn't give a cohesive narrative the whole way through. So having like a whole expansion where you're going through the same thing the whole way through is nice. And if you cap a character, you can actually do the same thing where you kind of level whenever zone you want to. Which has its good sides and its downsides to doing that. It's not as fast as going through the campaign itself, but it lets you get freedom of what you want to do. And you don't have to spend time of like, you can actually pick your covenant right away. You don't have to wait until you're at cap to do it. So you get your abilities right away. So it's nice that you get the choice after you cap. So if I were to get to Shadowlands on this character, I could just jump to picking my covenant and not have to do the main story, but I have to level through like dungeons and world crests. So world crests are essentially just like Fates in 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's funny. The Fates and stuff. So my first experience with Fates and those stuff was not actually that. It was, ironically enough, it was Guild Wars 2.
Guild Wars, huh?
Yes, because Guild Wars has a living story, and slash they had like the living world thing going on.
Uh-huh. So what's the living world like? Is it just like
So basically, there originally when it came out, a living. So you know how kind of like how Destiny has like a how they call a living story as well. So
yeah.
basically, there'd be fates around the world that were specific to the story going on at that current moment. It would pop up giant fate bosses. Idea kind of being like, oh look, it's growing with the world type thing. And then so I just for me again, regular kind of gaming experience that I don't realize is like that big of a deal until, you know, later.
Uh-huh.
And now, you know, it's one of those things that I think about now. I'm like, wow, that was kind of influential. I don't know if it was Guild Wars that did that originally. But
It could have been, but I don't know. It's
I don't know if WoW did that first or Guild Wars did it first, but Guild Wars was also like Guild Wars itself was a really influential MMO.
it could have been like RuneScape or something, who knows?
So, yeah, God knows. But like my first experience with Guild Wars and Guild Wars Fates were really, really, really fun because they are essentially just giant quests that the world can participate in to summon a world boss. They do the world boss, which would take like 40 people most of the time. And it's 40 people in this action combat-y setting, and it was really fun. So, like, then I see, and then it's not to say that FF14's fates are bad, or WoW's equivalent. It's just that typically with tab targeting, it just doesn't have that kind of movement feel where you're trying to move around and maneuver between people.
Mm-hmm. It's not as action-based. You know, it's much more static in combat.
Yeah.
Which I actually appreciate.
Like, I'm not, well, and I'm not saying that I don't appreciate it, right? It's just one of those things where it's like,
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's just kind of a different flavor. In a way. It's not good or bad, it's just different.
yeah, it's it's just one of those things where like you just look at it now and you're like, oh, okay, like that's a thing that it's just different. And I don't know, does WoW have a relic equivalent? A relic weapon equivalent?
Not really. There's no like grind you can go do. Right? The biggest grind you're gonna have is like your covenant, but you're capped on that weekly right now.
It's like that's the only thing that I can say that like specifically like with the fates. Like I've never been the biggest fan of grinding fates for relic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because while the fates feel static and it's nice to go do them as kind of like an XP boost, requiring to do them for stuff like that, it feels meh to me.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not exactly the best thing in the world, you know. But I think the expansion is a good start. I will be paying attention to see how the next couple patches go. But 14's still gonna be my main game. This isn't gonna pull me away. Gonna be honest. It's a nice breath of fresh air, especially since like you, I've been doing ultimate raiding for a while, and it's been getting stale, and I haven't had a reason to log in too much.
No, I'm trying to force myself to go in because I parse run consistently, or I try to. So like,
I probably should be doing that, but at the same time, I feel burned out on 14 other than the raids. So just kind of,
and part of that's also just the content throughout itself, right?
yeah, and it's bound to happen, and that's okay. Nobody's saying there has to be content every single day, and that's fine. But it doesn't make it easier to kind of go through. Shadowlands is a good step in the right direction. I'm just worried that they're going to ruin it. Because it seems like the World of Warcraft team is willing to listen to fans, but they're not willing to act on it. There has been a very big movement to kind of decouple the Covenant abilities from the Covenants themselves. And while they listened, and they were like, no, we're not going to do that. Mind you, it's the month before the expansion when this thing really started taking shape, so uncoupling it would have been nearly impossible at that time. So I would say sticking to the guns was probably the best idea, but it just feels kind of, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way on how they're willing to listen, but they're not willing to change their ways.
Yeah. Oh, and part of that is, I mean, to be fair, they've earned their keep by being good developers. It's just it turns into you need to go back to your roots and listen a little bit, you know?
Yeah. So BFA launched with a terrible system in place. The Azerite Armor. Okay. So Azerite Armor was okay. We're gonna have like skills and like upgrades be part of your gear, and you're gonna have 3 pieces of gear that will do that for you. Right, so let's say you could have like a trait in like your chest piece that's like, oh, we'll give you every single time you do a judgment, you get like 25% movement speed. Something like that. You could have like really good traits in there. It does more damage, more abilities, give you cooldowns. It could give you like an extra charge. It would be really worth it. But the problem is it's tied to your gear. So if you ever were to replace that gear, and say the gear you got newly is a better item level, but the traits are worse, it might be worth it to keep your old piece of gear, which is a worse item level, because there's a better trait on it, you know. And the fact that there were a lot of traits that were just spec specific, and changing traits was not cheap, you know. It wasn't easy to change traits. It wasn't free. So I forget what it cost back in the day, but it definitely cost something. But yeah, changing your traits wasn't cheap. Also, you had to level up your necklace, which was Azerite power, to a certain level to be able to use some of the traits. So if it was like a really like a mythic piece of gear, which was like end game raid content, there's a chance you couldn't even be able to use it because it required a level that was way too high for you. So you could run around with a piece of armor with no traits because you haven't leveled up your chest piece, you haven't leveled up your Azerite power enough. So just lots of like bad ideas. A good intention, but just like a bad idea, you know?
Yeah. And
they kind of like patch fixed it with essences, which wasn't tied to your gear, and then they essentially made it so that your gear would always have all of its slots unlocked as long as you reach like level 25, which wasn't that hard at all. So you didn't have to worry about leveling up your pieces of gear, leveling up to make sure you could use your pieces of gear anymore, which is nice. But
Yeah,
it was
at time.
it was terrible. It was literally terrible. It made it so that making an alt, which you had to do the Azerite power grind again, made it so that you didn't want to. Nobody leveled an alt last expansion, really, because leveling it and getting its Azerite power up to snuff and making sure you had all your traits done and everything, it was a lot of time and effort to put into a single character, and doing that again was worse. Because you didn't get any speed increases at all for doing it on single character, so making your next one easier at all, at least as far as I'm aware. So you had to do that grind over and over and over again, and it's never easier. It never got easier. So you were just grinding the whole time, and it was just awful. I was kind of there, and I wasn't able to, I had the same problem where I wasn't able to choose a class that I really wanted to play as. So I kept bouncing it back and forth between a couple different ones, and it was awful. It was really bad, because you know, once you do the grind and then you're like, oh, I don't really like this class anymore, and then you have to you have a big grind ahead of you. So I don't know, it was just discouraging. A lot of people quit the game. If you remember back, like sometime earlier this year or last year, there's a lot of WoW refugees in 14.
Yeah.
That was during Battle for Azeroth.
Well, I knew that much because there was a bunch of stuff that came out, and then like, because I mean, I'm sure you've noticed, but the GCD is a bit faster in WoW.
Yeah, it is.
On top, so like, they would just adjusting. I remember the adjustment period because I remember so many people complaining about it.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, oh, the GCD is too big. It was like a way too big GCD. Which is like, GCD in 14 is like 2.5 seconds, I believe.
Yeah, if you don't do any modifications, which people do, to be fair, but
yeah, I think this one is like 1.5. So it's a second, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different to get used to. So while combat's a lot faster, but I would say it's a lot simpler. Right? Because you get, like, look at this. I have 3 abilities, but I'm only level 13, so it's not exactly fair. But, you know, where there was, like, Paladin on 14, where you fill up your entire bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then some with other abilities where you have to take you have to like selfish choice some of the abilities you don't like. I was like, oh man, I don't really need cover, so I'm not gonna have it bound. I'm just gonna leave it over there. You know? Where they had it's not really ability bloat, it's just like they have a lot of abilities. And then 14, it's cooled down massively. The kind of what you need and a few other flavor things, but like I would say it's a bit too small. But that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect, I'd say.
Get the key. Let's get over there and free that Drake.
At the end of the day, I really like Shadowlands. I guess is just the biggest thing I'm trying to say. I like Shadowlands from a casual's perspective, but if I were to go any deeper, I would hate it immensely. I would hate it a lot, because I would be frustrated on the fact that, like, if I wanted to do raiding as a certain class and it wasn't, Night Fae wasn't the best, I wouldn't be picking Night Fae or I'd be picking Night Fae and just kind of living with it,
Yeah.
which isn't.
Well, I mean, like again, like moving. The problem isn't moving once; it's moving twice. I think, right? Because like that's when you have to do daily quests to just get them to trust you again, type thing.
Yeah.
So like, it's one of those. Some of those situations where it's like, okay, like when you do balancing eventually, or when you flip the balance on them.
Yeah, I would say that it's not 100% accurate. I can't say specifically what the actual thing entails and what you do to get your reputation back, but that's just how it works. You have to do a quest or a series of quests or daily quests in order to get like your reputation back, so you can join the Covenant again. You're able to keep your reputation with them. So let's say you're like renown level 2 when you leave, you'll be renown level 2 when you get back. So you're able to keep some of your experience that you did before, but not all of it. Well, sorry, you keep it. You do keep it, sorry. You keep all of it.
Yeah, and like I said, it's one of those things. Like the problem is when they eventually balance it, and you have to switch back.
Yeah.
You know, because that's how these things work. Like it's not just a video game thing. Like
so the problem wouldn't be if it was like within 5% of each other. That's fine. But the problem is these covenants are sometimes being like 20-30% difference in damage. You know. I don't know what it's like currently, because it's way too early in the game to kind of say. But having that kind of discrepancy between covenants is too much. Way too much. It's imagine doing 30% less than somebody, even if you had the same gear and everything, just because you chose a different covenant, is heartbreaking. Not heartbreaking, but just kind of frustrating, you know? So I can see how if you're at endgame at all, or if you're a hardcore player, that this could be something, the hill you could die on, is the fact that you want this decoupled as soon as possible, or balanced better. But there isn't really a good way to balance it without essentially just making it all passive stat buffs. You know, making it more boring. But then when it's more boring, people don't care. So it's one of those things.
I have sacrificed everything. What have you given? There is much to be done.
Okay.
Do not linger here too long. The Legion is attacking.
We're almost level 15. I get Crusader Aura? Oh, it's awesome. Also, there's one more thing where, like, one thing that bothers me that it really shouldn't is the fact that there's nothing big at level 60. Right? There's nothing, you get nothing really big by capping. You get your Covenant, but if you did your Threads of Fate, there's nothing really for you. Except for, like, reaching endgame. Right? You know how, like, in 14, you get, like a really good ability when you reach cap. And for some people, it completes their, their jobs rotation. So not having that is kind of sad. Like the latest ability you'll get is at 58, and it's more than likely going to be a trait. So it's one more like little nitpick.
Knowledge is power, but using it wisely
Yeah.
And then they feel
Just
like they have to like limit players' time because there is caps. There's weekly caps. There's weekly caps on things on how much you can rank up your covenant per week. So, I don't know how to feel about that personally, because I wouldn't be one of the people grinding like all the time to get my covenant as high as possible.
You like this area you're in, though.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Like any questions you wanted to ask about the WoW at all?
I think I got my questions for the most part answered. I just
Yeah. Okay. I. All right. We're gonna. I feel like that's everything we're gonna talk about.
Well, because I mean, there's not much there's not much I can think to add. I mean, overall, if I had to like give an overall view, WoW has its benefits in being outside of just having the cloud rather the social build that it does. Um, I guess like my main question: do you think Shadowlands will make up for the difference of when people left for Battle of Azeroth?
It's not that good.
It's not good enough. So because like here's my main question as an FF player is to see if we lose a significant amount of player counts to, and not that Yoshi P particularly doesn't like encourage you to play other games because he does as a developer. But like, do we lose the WoW refugees that came over, or
I
do you
mean,
to Shadowlands, or do you think that like it's just not good enough to pull back the mistakes that were made?
you will for a little bit, right? An expansion's always gonna take priority over a new patch, you know. So people will be coming back for that, and more than likely people are, aka me. I am back for a little bit, but
Yeah.
after that, they're not gonna stay. I don't feel like this has a lot of staying power. I feel like this has enough power for people to come back for a month, see what's going on, level their classes, see some old friends, do some things that they've missed, see how things are, and leave it at that. Which is fine. WoW absolutely does not want that to happen. They want people to be playing no matter what every single day. You can kind of tell because they have daily world missions and all that, and
Well, they have just a like generally speaking a lot that they want you to be doing.
yeah, they have a lot they want you to grind for.
Whereas like FF has a point where it's like, okay, you've reached kind of like the end. And a lot of MMOs have where you'll reach the end of the story or reach the end of like the raids and stuff, and you'll have some downtime. And WoW's always kind of just been the MMO to be like, well, we have a bunch of shit that you need to constantly do to stay relevant, which is a way to keep your player base coming. And Blizzard wants you to feel like you're getting your money's worth, but no, like I said, it's just a curiosity. I'll probably be watching from a market standpoint just how well this, especially with its comparisons to Shadowbringers, because people compare screenshots, arts, and whatnot, and they see some things that they don't necessarily like. I can't confirm nor deny whether or not they're similar in that fashion, but like people see obvious comparisons, and Shadowbringers was a huge success. It gave FF kind of a huge just jump. It was already kind of with Stormblood and the revamped the combat system kind of jumping forward, but Shadowbringers really put it at the forefront, and it made it honestly one of the best Final Fantasies to play, but legitimately like one of the best MMOs on the market.
Yeah.
And so like it wouldn't be unreasonable for WoW to try to mirror that success with a similar type of expansion, but from what I've been told from Battle of Azeroth, they lost a lot of players for
several different reasons, depends on the person. And I've had friends who left for that. Which when I think about it, obviously in hindsight, but it was funny when back when I was playing FF14, like when I first very started, like and Battle of Azeroth was coming out, and people were super hyped for it, and they kept asking me to play WoW, and that they'd give me a little slack for playing FF, which no big deal.
Yeah.
But then hearing about it now, like people really don't like that expansion. And I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons why. I probably would have to play more consistently to tell you, because
Mhm.
playing now, they probably tried to take back some of those things, and like you mentioned, like they don't really want that story to take prevalence. It's you know,
Mhm.
it's just interesting. Whereas like WoW's kind of having this hit and miss type thing right now, whereas
It
FF is just kind of riding a high.
Yeah, like I would say the worst thing is that Stormblood was not as good as Heavensward, but it was still really good, right?
Well, my thing is, and this is like, I think that kind of boils down when you look at it FF wise, right? Is how personal the stories were comparatively.
Uh-huh.
Like, and people, and it's so Heavensward came after honestly one of the worst grogs ever, story wise.
Yeah.
Because the original FF story, it still has lots of troubles and problems here and there.
They
So
recently had to cull like half of it.
yeah, they're trying to keep cutting it down because they realize the problem they've created with it.
Yeah.
But you know, and they were open with the design philosophy of those original quests and why they just don't hold up now. Um, but Heavensward coming after all of that slog kind of benefits it because it was just genuinely better, and they could take their improved tips that they knew and put it as a better expansion.
Hmm.
Um, Especially that was a lot of people's, kind of, at least from the group of people that I know, that was a lot of their intro stuff. Like, well, there were some people that are around for ARR, but a lot of the people that I have talked to are like have, my old FC, my old guild stuff like that. They even some of my Guild Wars friends, like their introduction to FF14 was Heavensward, so there's some nostalgia to that. So I think that also kind of plays into it. I don't think Stormblood was bad by any means, and I don't think that when I compare Heavensward and Stormblood, I don't think that any one of them is objectively better. It's just it depends on. I think it really honestly depends on when you came in and where you have kind of your preference, because there was a lot of people that came during Stormblood. I mean I returned to FF in Stormblood and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, Despite its shortcomings, But
Hmm.
uh, if I had to put the comparison, Shadowbringers right now will be talked about like Lich King is talked about for WoW. I think is probably like the similar benchmark because it's just that impactful. So
Absolutely.
when I see Shadowlands or I see this, like you talk about it and stuff, and I have other people talk about it. Part of me worries for the future of FF because when do we get that? When do we get that cataclysm? Because people talk about that being negative, or when do we get our battle for Azeroth, where it's like people make a giant exodus? Because it will happen. There will be eventually, probability states that over time those expansions will come out, especially.
It'll wind down eventually. It will. I mean, there's not. Of course, it will. Like, it could just eventually just slowly fall down. It won't be a max exodus, but it could just be people leaving over the fact that they're just burned out over the game. Period, which is fine.
Mhm.
But
Well, and I'm just more curious, like for example, like because Wes has so much time to do stuff. Like I mentioned all the time. I mean, like I used to play, and I still to some degree play MMOs for PvP,
mhm.
which because I play Blade and Soul, I play Black Desert. Ion was like my first MMO experience, and it's heavily PvP focused.
Yeah.
So and it's funny that I play FF now because like if you had asked me, I don't know, 2-3 years ago if I was going to play FF for rating, I would have told you no. Like I too focused on Black Desert at the time. It's like because I'm just kind of a PvP player, so it'll be curious to see if like FF fixes in that degree. I doubt that they will because
They
there's
would probably have to wait for an expansion launch before they would have to revamp PvP again. honestly. The skills was a good direction, but they need to overhaul the maps and everything so it's not requiring like 48 people. You know, make 4v4 prevalent, make 8v8 more prevalent, make
my problem is, so like originally, it's funny. It's the 48-48 because they wanted to make it more accessible, right?
yeah.
I've talked about this paradox before. By making it more accessible, they've actually killed it. Because now everyone can do it, which means that everyone will, and since it's tied to a roulette and it gives you really good experience, you'll hop in that 48-48. It doesn't really matter where you win or lose, and not that it does anyway, but it's not tied to a season rank or anything,
Yeah.
because it's just kind of like a giant free for all. So it's like funny and fun, like to kind of just casually do that. But like for all the people that were playing the 4v4s or the 8v8s, right? The stuff that has an actual rank assigned to it, and it has gear that you can only specifically get per season.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just one of those things where it's like they already have kind of the workings of a system by which they can rank people, they can play against each other and do that type of thing, and they've got balancing issues, but they're not as bad as you would think they would be.
Okay.
They just need, honestly, what killed PvP for FF, at least from what I can see in trends, is when they introduced that big giant battlefield, right, in Stormblood. And I get why they did it. Stormblood was all about the whole war scene, the thing is that ultimately it killed that community, because it tore them in half, right? Because you want people to be able to go do PvP. It's no different than kind of like the raid community now, or even the parsing community for FF14. Like there was, because I'm in that Discord, right? And they were discussing, opening up some of the parameters, or like having people be able to work with other parsers to kind of learn how to do like damage strategies versus just regular getting through clearing strategies.
Yeah.
Then they discussed making an ultimate rating channel, because that's something that's very prevalent on the Japanese servers, is pugging ultimates, and that's something that you just don't see here. But like it's similar in that fact, like the top end community wants to open up, but there are certain, specifically with PvP, it's very difficult, because how do you open up to people who can just hop into a roulette, do a quick 48-48, and then leave and not care, and then they can just go lol, FF14 PvP doesn't exist, invalidating these people that have to sit through 30-minute queue times because they're just trying to do something that they personally enjoy. Whereas I think that like WoW specifically gets that right, because from the get-go it had that PvP-esque feel to it, because they wanted that a bit. I mean, it's World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah, like I could jump into a PvP match right now and it's worth it.
Like they have to, if a game about pure, like a war between two factions that will never end, kind of needs to have pretty decent PvP. But not just that, like they spend time, they definitely nurture it. Whereas I don't think that Yoshi P, or specifically like the FF dev team, focus too hard on PvP. And honestly, it's a shame, because they've got the PvE stuff down, and there's a lot that they're working on. But like that would be my big push for FF personally, and where they could take a lesson from WoW to some degree. But WoW has its own problems, and
it does. The PvP does, honestly, in WoW feel like they're trying to keep it balanced. They are trying to keep it as like a third pillar, because Mythic Plus has kind of become its own pillar within the community of like endgame now, right? It is equivalent to rating. It gives you gear equivalent to rating almost. It's still PvE content, but it's really tough PvE content that can be done within 5 people. So it's able to do within smaller parties. While PvP, it feels like it's still struggling, but again, this is only something I'm seeing from like an outsider PvP perspective.
Yeah.
I don't have first-hand experience of endgame PvP and how that's looking right now. Where it would be different compared to how Mythic Plus and PvE is, because that's kind of more prevalent. But I forget what I was trying to say. For the most part, I feel like WoW had a good. So the reason why I don't think this is gonna be dethrowing 14 anytime soon is because I have not talked about the story much at all in Shadowlands. Because it's honestly not great.
Well, and that's just one of those things. Like I said, we're kind of writing in Final Fantasy 14 like a story high, right?
Yeah.
Like we've hit kind of not. I wouldn't say we've hit a peak, but like this is this is a climax about the Asians and specifically other villains that we've dealt with throughout. And I always ask the question every time there's a patch, like where do we go from here? Like because it just keeps getting to that point.
Yeah. And who knows, right? It could go straight up from here, and it could not. You have no clue at all. But it just depends on what's gonna happen.
Yeah. It just I'm curious to that, and like I said, to that end, I'm still also curious as how Shadowlands and WoW specifically will affect the way that is interpreted or done. Because people tend to compare things, especially when we know specific people that play WoW and then that also play FF14. It's like, you know, what do they do? What do they choose to do?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to make that choice, and that'll be interesting to see how that affects. I don't know if it will be competing with FF14 for right now. And honestly, if it had a chance, it would have been when the next expansion comes out after Shadow Raiders. And I honestly think that it's kind of weird to see them release Shadowlands before Christmas.
It was supposed to be releasing sometime in October, but they had to delay it a month.
COVID, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't just COVID. Although it did have a hand in it, there was a lot of people screaming out in the final couple of months, being like, "You need to delay this game because it's too unbalanced." In the beta and everything, it's way too unbalanced. Right? That's where I was talking about, like, one class doing double the damage of the other, covenants having like 30% increases, things like that. Where it's probably been toned down, but they had to delay it because it was not as balanced. It was not balanced at all, and they needed more time to balance it out. And I'm sure it was a tough call to do. It was the right call, but they did it way, way too late. Right? They delayed it like within 3 weeks ago. 3 to 4 weeks ago, right? Like, imagine if like the last 14 expansion was delayed by a month when there was like a month away. Something would have to be really wrong for them to delay it so soon. It's good that they did at all, and they didn't just release it as like a terrible mess. By the way, this place is still buggy. I've had a lot of quests in Shadowlands where I just couldn't complete them. I will show. I'm gonna pull this screenshot up on screen, because I feel like it's kind of important that I pull it up. I moved the wrong thing. God damn it.
No. Oh no!
I'm moving the wrong thing. God, oh, I can't. Okay. Hold on. I can't show it because I'm oh, I did pull. Wait, it's there. Wait, how? God. Okay, so this one, right? Okay, this. So I logged into the game, and I was immediately put into this void area where I couldn't do anything but fall for about an hour. I waited here for about a half hour trying to do anything. And eventually I had to do the character unstuck function to get myself out. Because I was just falling into an empty void for about an hour. This is about right when about right when the reset, after the reset happened, a little bit afterwards. So it was right during then. And just like the fact that that was there.
A game that's, you know, multi-million-dollar maker slash like
Right?
should be optimized to hell.
I'm not saying that it needs to be perfect, but like I don't know many people at all who would know how to get their character unstuck from that, right? I barely knew. Right? Do you know that WoW has a character unstuck function at all?
I mean, like, I would certainly hope that they do, because, you know, from a programming perspective, it makes more sense.
Do you
if
know
they
you
would.
can go into the menu and look for it? Do you know where it is?
No, I couldn't tell you. To be fair.
Okay, let's go and find it. Let's go and find it right now. I want you to see. So we're in customer support, contact support, in-game issues, character problem, character stuck service, and then you press continue, and it will instantly kill you, so you can go to the latest go to the graveyard. If you can't, it'll either use your Hearthstone if you have it available and you're able to use it, or it will instantly kill you.
Oh, I'm glad that their solution is death.
Yeah, but how? Who would know? Also, I closed the game and opened it twice, and it was still happening. Right? Twice. I don't think that's something like, I can just imagine me being a new player who just bought Shadowlands and being like, how the hell do I get through this? And now you have to wait for customer support to fix it for you. Because you don't know how to. How would you know that there's a character unstuck function? Is there one in 14? I have no idea. I don't think so. I don't think so. So it's one of those things that's like, what the fuck? Right? And there's a couple other bugs of like, well, I couldn't talk to a single person, or a plot specific item wouldn't appear, or a mob wouldn't spawn, so I had to abandon a quest and come back to it. And that's fine. You know, I'm willing to accept those bugs, because, you know, they're bugs and they happen, and, you know, it's okay. Right? Bugs are part of the experience. But a game-breaking bug like that, where I just log into the game and I'm stuck floating into the world until I know how to break myself free of it, is, oh my god. Oh my god, it frustrated me to no end. Not because I couldn't get free of it, it's because it was so it's so awful. It was so awful to do. Because you don't exactly expect something like that to happen, you know? And I don't know, it would just kind of kill somebody's mood if something were to happen and you just can't continue. Like, even if customer support fixed it and you were to get free, it's still
like, yeah, like...
It shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. This thing was beta tested for months. I was invited to the alpha, and I was in the alpha. I was in the first pass, so that means it was like I got it like 6 months. I think it was 6 months, you know, and it can happen in there. That's fine. You can run around with untextured creatures, you know, all day. But when it's here, when it's in the live game.
Yeah, that's I don't know how I feel about that, you know.
It's not good. But that's just me being frustrated over the fact that I lost like an hour of my life. You know, and also the story wasn't very impressive. It was stories of 4 different zones where they were kind of uninteresting. You know, they weren't. It wasn't amazing. It was fine. right? I wasn't very captivated. I think if you're a long time WoW player, some of the reveals that they do was pretty good. But other than that, it doesn't. It's, you know, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. It was fine. It's the best I can say. It's fine. It was on par of like a Beast Tribe quest kind of level. Pretty well written, but it was fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of disappointing on the fact that you know, they have all these characters and all these situations and things like that. And the thing that gave me the most joy was like a play. Right? That was I had a freaking good time watching and participating in that play that they have to put on for the Night Fae. It was amazing. It's probably my highlight of this expansion. But I don't know if it should be. Right?
Yeah, I don't. That shouldn't be like the thing you're pursuing, you know.
Yeah, it should be like a cool moment or a cool character comes in or anything like that. You know, and they had like these really nice like so they released like a cinematic for each zone that was done in like kind of like a comic book style.
Okay.
The Afterlife shorts, and they're in game. They're in game if like during the campaign you get to see them all. And they're pretty good. You know, but I just wish, and they were really good. They were really good stories, but it never transferred to the main game. Right? It was only good for like that specific you know, like little cinematic. But it was never that good the entire way through the campaign of each zone, you know? Which is sad, because it shows that, oh, you have the ability to do this. You have the ability to make it look great, but you don't. You know? Apparently each zone was done by like a different team.
That's still like, again, that's cool in concept, but that could also mean like that can get extremely disorganized, right? Like,
yeah, I'm sure there was like a couple of like directors making sure everything was kind of uniform. But you can kind of see, like, you can see what team did better than the others. Again, this is only from hearsay. I can't say for sure what, I can't say for sure if that's the case. But, that's what I've heard. And I would honestly believe it, because they kind of vary in quality. Like, the Kyrian was pretty interesting, and it had a lot of quests, and, like, all the side content was really good. The war people were okay, but I had zero interest, and they didn't really make themselves very interesting. It was very bland. The Night Fae was amazing. I love the Night Fae, and I don't see a reason to take any other covenant unless I really had to. And the Venthyr, which are the vampire people, they have cool effects, but they are not. They're not cool enough for me to ride with them, you know? Like, their biggest thing of when you join their covenant is that you put on a party. You know? Which is like, eh. Yeah, you know, and it's very like, eh. From what I've seen of how you do that event, it's not very good. But it's fine. So
yeah, again, it's one of those things, right?
So
Like,
it's unbalanced. It's unbalanced. There's a lot of people who are taking covenants just because of the abilities and not because they like the covenant.
yeah.
There's a lot of people who say that for Night Fae because they don't like the they don't like Night Fae aesthetic. They like you know, things to be dark and gritty and kind of like, you know, warlike. So it's kind of eh.
I feared we might lose that one. He was so weak when I found him. My keepers are overrun. We will require
One of those things, right?
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things.
Bring my child to me, young one.
But yeah, I guess that's. I don't know if there's really anything else I can say. Is the expansion is fine. It's pretty decent, but it's not good enough in my eyes. It's got a lot of weight to pull, and hopefully it can do that with the patches. But right now, it's just like I'm just kind of wishing it was Legion again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Legion had a very like it had itself tied to its visual effects. Like you had an artifact to get, and you got to get like different skins for that artifact, and you could work through that the entire expansion, which was like an artifact quest line. You could do, which required you to do PvP to get some of the really cooler skins. You know? That you had a reason to go into PvP that wasn't just like, I like PvP. You know, you could get some skins that were really rocking. And showed that you were like a PvP master, or like you did a lot of PvP. And there was like a couple of different raid specific ones, and there was like a hidden skin on each class that was different on how to get it. Some were like callbacks to like different parts of WoW lore, and one were like callbacks to like different rumors within WoW. Like Retribution Paladin, which is the most interesting. So there was a lot of rumors going around on how to get the Ashbringer, which was like a really powerful weapon in vanilla that existed for like a week before they took it out. Well, not for like a week, but it existed in Classic. And then they took it out for Wrath of the Lich King because they revamped the whole raid and put it in Wrath of the Lich King. So they had like a lot of hints on how to get it. So a lot of the community thought there was like, oh, you could do it by doing this way or do fishing and things like that. And the entire quest line to get the hidden artifact skin involves like parts of those rumors. Like you have to go find somebody, ask them how to fish up this thing, and you fish up the thing in order to get the hidden artifact skin. It's really impressive how they did it back in the day, and it made it like really worth it to go out and get it. Even like it gave you a tangible effect as well. Even though it didn't really give you any like power, it was just kind of fun to do. Yeah. It didn't give you any player power, but it gave you like, a really cool skin that was worth getting. So it was one of those things. And BFA does. Oh, sorry, Shadowlands doesn't really have anything like that. There's like different cosmetic you can get depending on your covenant. You get like a backpack or like a mount or things like that, or a minion, and it's like.
You're like, yeah, you're just kind of like meh. Like
mount doesn't really matter because
you get it. I'm sure. Well, it looks like you have like people just have like a bunch of different mounts.
Yeah, a lot of people just have really nice mounts, right? It'd be hard to replace. It'd be hard to replace like a mount because you can have a whole bunch of them. But having a weapon, having an armor piece, that's different. That stays with you. Right? It stays with you even when you're not mounted. So. Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, even WoW has its. Will eventually have its day again.
It might if they start listening to their community again, because it feels like they haven't for a bit. I hope they do. But who knows? They haven't listened to them with the covenant thing. Even though they've been kind of saying this for months, so I'm very skeptical but it's how it is. It makes me really sad. The fact that it could be great, but they probably won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's really anything else to say, honestly. I think that's it.
It's like I mean I don't have much else to say either.
Yeah.
Like
It's a good game, but it's not a great game.
it's seen better days.
The only reason I'm here is because of nostalgia, and I feel like I should be here because there's something cool for here, you know, like with 14, and not with WoW. So
Yeah.
it makes me kind of sad because WoW is one of the very few games in which I want to like it, but I don't. I do like it. I just don't like it enough for it to be my main game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of it though. Shadowlands good, but not good enough. It's fine, but it's not anything special. They did a lot of improvements and quality of life changes, but it wasn't enough. And that's really all there is to it. All right. I think that's really it.
I
So
was like, yeah, again, quality of life changes are great, but not. I don't know if an expansion for that is.
yeah, you don't need an expansion for quality of life changes. So it's how it is. It's how it should be. We'll just yeah, that'll be it. That'll be I don't think there's anything else for me to say. So I'll call it a day. Thank you,
Call it a
right?
day?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks Horace
Okay.
for coming to talk. I really appreciate your input on this.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though I am, how they say, smooth brain.
Maybe a little, but that's okay. It's a big help. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.